Zach Elfman of Mission Wine. Tell me what brings an American to Ribera Sacra and what makes an American stay in Ribera Sacra of all places.
This is a very good question. If you've ever been there, I think it's pretty easy to answer the first part of the question. It's stunning, really special place in terms of just the general topography and beauty and in terms of place to live. But then layer on top of that the viticulture and terroir, and it's just a paradise. Extremely challenging in terms of how to work it, but it's just a very special expression that you can get from the land there and the soils and everything's by hand. It was very romantic and remains very romantic. And so that's what originally drew me there. To stay there, the challenge persists. It's very, very difficult. I like a challenge and I am continually trying to make the best wine that I possibly can there. It's a great place to live in general, but in terms of the winemaking, it is very hard. And I like to continually push myself and I'm still trying to make the best wine that I can.
How many vintages have you done thus far?
Started in 2015, so I've done 10 vintages.
This is going into year 10. Yeah. Can you walk me
Yeah.
through the Mission lineup? I know you have kind of some core things you add or subtract things depending on the year.
Sure. So, like I said before, the main idea is doing single vineyards from different parts of the Ribera Sacra. My home vineyard, the vines that are mine, is called Moonrise. That is my own grapes. I do as little intervention as I possibly can get away with. I do that with all of my wines, but I have more faith in my own grapes, so I'm able to intervene even a little bit less in the cellar. On top of that, I've got Uno, which is from Amandi, and that is on the granite side of Amandi, quite fresh, quite light, simple, elegant. Then I've got Dos, which is from Taboada. It's a bit further north of Chantada. It's even more Atlantic. It is very fresh, very green in some years, even. Needs a lot of time in bottle to come together. But when it does have that maturity on it in the bottle, it turns into something very complex, very deep, and very special. Tres is the white wine that I make every year. Godeo based blend, spends about 12 months in barrel. Some nice like secondary tertiaries. It's not just like this typical Galician white fruit bomb. It's
Yeah.
got something else going on. On top of that, some years I make rosé, usually rosé Mencia based. I like to do direct press, ferment in barrel. I mentioned Syrah before, and getting a Syrah from a friend in Quiroga for some years, and it's really special just to see how Syrah expresses itself in the Ribera Sacra.
It's not a typical grape, but it is funny because in a lot of conversations I will compare Mencia to sort of cool climate Northern Rhone or elsewhere Syrah in the way that it expresses itself. A lot of people like to compare Mencia as a grape to Cabernet Franc, but I don't think that's the greatest comparison if we're going to do it. But if you have really great Mencia, it can get this peppery quality to it that's not green pepper but black pepper, and it can get this spicy meatiness to it.
Absolutely agree. And I think some of especially from the Minho and the Chantada region, if you age it for a while, it can get very northern Rhone-ish. And I don't think it's just the Mencia, but it's also the field blends. Getting a little bit of the Palomino in there, getting a little bit of the Garnacha in there.
Walk me through your backstory a little bit. So how did you get into wine? How did you end up living and working in Ribera Sacra?
Sure. So I came from a non winemaking family. Wine was around, but nothing on the production side. I had worked at a local winery just in the tasting room, and it was always a dream of mine. Pursued a different career, but then came to the point when it was really, if I wanted to make wine, I had to jump out of that career and jump into winemaking. So I kind of had this realization. I did a couple of harvests, one in Stellenbosch, another in Mendoza, and then I did a road trip with my partner. She's from Asturias, so northwest Spain. I knew that I liked the wines here. I knew that I liked the lifestyle here, and so wanted to start at least to check out the different areas. So we did a road trip through the north of Portugal into the Douro, Vinho Verde, and then we did all of Galicia, starting from Rias Baixas on the coast, and we
Yeah.
went all the way through to the Bierzo. And I had never been to the Ribera Sacra, and it was, yeah, like I said before, just a stunning, very special place. I tried some of the wines. I thought, wow, this is a place where I could really see myself and do something special. And so that's what I've been trying to do.
It's funny too because it's this undiscovered kind of terroir. You go to other beautiful terraced wine regions, like you go to the Mosel, you go to Côte Rôtie, but there is something just naturally wild about Ribera Sacra that I think really draws people in because they don't have the billboards saying this vineyard belongs to X person, or the infrastructure is not quite as developed as like the Mosel, for example.
No.
In terms of viticulture, you're in, tell me a little bit about where you're sourcing grapes for Mission, what vineyards you're farming, and
Sure.
maybe the difficulties of this heroic viticulture.
I originally saw how diverse the terroir is within this relatively compact region. And so what I wanted to do is kind of a Burgundian approach of expressing single vineyards. And I've got my own vineyard on the Chantada side. It's on the Minho. It's kind of for those of you who don't know, the northwest side of the Ribera Sacra. More Atlantic influence, cooler, more wet. But I also wanted to, and I can't be in too many places at once, but I wanted to show what other parts of the Ribera Sacra can do. So I've got single vineyard wines also from Amandi, which is on the Seal, very much south facing, much warmer, drier terroir there, and Quiroga as well, and also further up the Minho into Taboada. And opportunistically, if some Syrah comes up, for example, I'll jump at that opportunity. It's hard to find if some Meransau or Bransayao comes up. If something special comes up, then each year I'm kind of adding to my core lineup, and
Yeah.
I'll do something fun.
What are we dealing with when we talk about heroic viticulture?
Sure. So it's a pretty steep
Pretty steep
incline.
is an understatement, right?
Yeah, I think it's about as steep as it gets in terms of viticulture and what can be done. I've got on my own vines, it's about two vines per row. And so we're talking about maybe a 45, 50-degree incline. I'm on granite. And so we've got granite walls, we've got the granite steps that, what we walk up between each of the rows or of the walls. Everything's done by hand. There's no way to get any machinery in there. It's, backpack to spray. It is a hand weed whacker, picking crates, of course, and everything's carried in. To get to the vineyard, there's no road access. So I actually have to hike through a forest, which is quite nice, but
Definitely different. I mean, so when you were in Mendoza, for example, like how does that compare to the viticulture that you were practicing in
yeah,
Stellenbosch? I mean, there's no comparison.
there's no comparison. It is completely different. Not just to mention that the dryness and the arid climate in Mendoza, it's effectively a desert. There's no trees around. Everything's by machine. They do picking by hand, but everything's up, kind of overhead. Everything's covered with netting for hail. It's just, yeah,
Hmm.
it's a different world. You've got the Andes in the background.
Yeah.
Stellenbosch was, I would say more similar to California where I grew up. It's kind of a sloping, soft hills. It's not too rocky. It's more of like a sandstone, mudstone
And I would say in both of the
base.
cases, there's probably more labor availability, right? There's more people around who can pick the grapes.
Yeah, this is another reason why I was drawn to the Ribera Sacra specifically. There is beautiful old vines that are being abandoned constantly. And it is so hard to work that there is, let's say, a lack of demand for that sort of work. There's just not people. The average age in the vineyards is probably about 60,
5,
maybe
70.
65.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is great. And they know a lot, but it is physical, it is difficult work.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who get hurt every year. They want to go back, but they cannot tend the vines. And the younger generation has been told this is not the kind of work that you should be doing. You should go study,
Right.
be a doctor, be an engineer, go to Barcelona, go to Madrid, go to Germany, whatever it
There's
might
no
be.
future in it. Yeah. In terms of when you interact with people, obviously, have you found that, you just said that they know a lot of the old timers. Have you found that people have been very open to this Americano coming in and
I,
going to make wine?
yeah, I actually have, and people are surprised to hear that, but I've found the people very open, very happy to share, a bit guarded and a bit suspicious, yes, but I think that's normal in any area. But I have found that the people are really happy that I am there, and it's almost like a confirmation. If somebody from outside is here in Galicia, then that must mean something's good about our grapes and our wine and our
Yeah.
land.
I mean, that's something that I've found a lot doing this project, right? Is when I tell people, well, I'm writing about Galician wine or I'm shooting videos of wine or whatever, they always say, oh, well, it takes someone from the outside to make us realize what we have here. So there's this huge kind of, self-esteem issue that they have. In my conversation with Sarah Jane Evans, she was saying the same thing, that Spain has a confidence problem. Like if you want a Barolo, you're going to pay for it. But then you want a Ribera Sacra and you want to pay more than €5 a bottle, and people all of a sudden they go, whoa, whoa, this must be a
Yep.
crazy wine. I think all of this kind of crisis of labor and the pricing leads us to talk about this crisis that happened this past vintage in Ribera Sacra. There was crisis distillation that was going on. A lot of wineries didn't renew their contracts with growers because of a surplus of red wine in the wineries, and we have these changing consumer tastes, and people aren't drinking as much what they call vino de chateo anymore, right? This cheap red wine. How was that experience for you, and how tell me how the growers around you kind of lived that?
It is just exacerbating the crisis. So if somebody was considering maybe this is my last year farming, and then the winery that they've been selling grapes to forever is now saying, "Oh, we're not going to buy your grapes anymore," and they have to go out and find another buyer for their grapes, they're just going to leave that vineyard abandoned. So I expect to see, unfortunately, a lot of vineyards just being turned into, as I call it, monte. The forest is going to take over a lot. My experience is that yes, there's been pushback from my distributors. There's, I would say, demand in the lower end of the market. So there is still demand for, I would say, good quality wines at the lower price points, but you get into quote unquote premium tier of anything above €10 per bottle, both red and white, and there's just no more demand for it.
In terms of your project, do you see that you kind of want to expand? Do you have a vision for the future, given this context within Ribera Sacra of abandonment?
I would love to. I don't think it's feasible given the market realities right
Yeah,
now, at
yeah.
least. In a few years, if there is more readily available labor, if those vineyards continue being abandoned, I would love to put a larger project together. But at the moment, I am pretty happy with my production levels. I'm at about 5,000 bottles per year. I'm very small, but I really just want to focus on getting it right, making the best product I can, and getting that into the hands of people who are going to really appreciate it.
In terms of, you mentioned that you are not afraid to use barrel. Ribera Sacra, for the most part, I think we can generalize and say that there are a lot of young red wines being made that only see stainless steel. The barrel influence, does that come from your experience working in these regions like Stellenbosch and Mendoza? And can you walk me through a little bit of your wood aging regime?
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, it does. Especially my experience in Stellenbosch, and also based on the wines that I tend to like to drink.
Yeah.
I lean towards neutral oak, so quite used oak. I like concrete. I like amphora. So I like an oxidative aging process, but I don't like the flavors that are associated with new oak. My winery is situated on a quite steep slope, and so I can't get concrete in there.
Hmm.
But I'm happy with my barrels, and I've got some barrels that I've been using for a long time, and they're nice and neutral. So I like to put as much as I can into barrel and leave it there for as long as it needs to. I generally put it on the lees. I don't stir the lees, but I just leave it there resting. And yes, I would say the vast majority of the Ribera Sacra is made either, let's say the vast majority is made just in stainless. And then there is a special carve out that I think is adopted from the Riojan way of doing things, which is put the same wine into new barrels and see what happens. And the barrels just eat those wines, and
Yeah.
you get this kind of oak tea that is not my favorite. So
Yeah.
if I'm going to be drinking a kind of typical Ribera Sacra wine, I prefer it to be in stainless over
Yeah.
new oak. So
Foudre, maybe, but used Foudre, large oak, that kind of thing. And then you get grapes like Brantillao or Maranzao, right, that are so delicate. And especially the expression in Galicia that if you put it in new oak, it just, like you say, it's perfectly, it eats those grapes. Do you consider yourself a natural winemaker?
that's a good question. I actually spoke to one of my distributors this week, and I don't consider myself really anything. I'm not dogmatic. I have found that natural wine people think that I'm not natural, and non-natural wine people think I'm too natural. And so I'm kind of in between two worlds. In terms of like how I make my wine, it is minimal intervention. I'm not using inert gases or CO2 to flush tanks. I'm doing things on a basket press, minimal racking. I use a little bit of sulfur, and I think that's where the hardcore, they consider me outside of their camp, which is fine. But then because my winemaking is so light touch, I think a lot of the more conventional wine drinkers and sommeliers and distributors would consider me
Yeah.
natural. The only additions I do are sulfur. Usually that's just before bottling.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do a little bit of sulfur crush if the grapes are calling for it. I've experimented with zero sulfur wines. I sometimes like how it turns out, and I sometimes don't, but I cannot take that risk. And so I am just doing some risk control. That being said, like I mentioned before, with my own grapes, I am trying to do zero sulfur,
Yeah.
but so far it has been lightly sulfured before bottling. We'll see with 2024, it's still in barrel and nothing's been added. Maybe this will be a zero sulfur year.
I'm on this crusade to get people to drink more Galicia in general, but Ribera Sacra, I think, is so important because there's so much that stands to be lost. Why should people drink Ribera Sacra? Why should people get into this wine region?
Yeah, I mean, well, thanks for your support and helping out the region. It does need it. It has so much history. The wines are so delicious and they're so unique. Anybody who is a bit tired of what they've been drinking, just give it a shot. They are mineral, they are fresh, they are complex, they are low alcohol, they are singular expressions of this very special terroir. Unfortunately, not everybody can come visit, but those who have visited and tried the wines and drank them on the spot have a really deep and profound appreciation of them. And so if you can imagine putting yourself into Galicia, having a glass of Ribera Sacra wine and picture the green mountains and terraced vineyards around you, I think then you might be able to get a glimpse of what that appreciation is. I would say you just got to try it.
Thank you so much, Zach, for talking with me. Mission Wine, go drink it. Thank you so much, Zach.
Perfect. Great. Been a pleasure.